Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is Monday, March 2nd, and the United States is at war. Donald Trump likes to begin his wars over the weekend. And as you all know, everyone's been talking about it. They have attacked Iran over the weekend and, a violation of every promise that Donald Trump made to his constituency, to people who voted for him. There's just so much going on. LT Oracle of Truth, I see you. Welcome to the apocalypse. Yes, it is Monday, and we are at war. Of course, we are broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the Finger Lakes region. We're live on Rumble, live on Twitter, Spreely TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, every podcast platform you can imagine. And yeah, it's very strange. These headlines are fast and furious. It's like a fire hose in your face every day. One headline is crazier than the next. And it has been this way really since the first of the year, 2026. Just insane, an insane year. And, this is one of the biggest betrayals in terms of Donald Trump's campaign promises of all. He promised to get to the bottom and release all of the Epstein files and to go after the perpetrators of children in this country regarding the Epstein files, did everything that he possibly could throughout the course of 2025 to keep those under wraps. This is all now being exposed despite Donald Trump's best efforts. That has fractured his base. He has betrayed promises regarding a reckoning for what happened during the dark days of COVID-19, the rollout of the COVID shots. The MAHA base, the medical freedom base, voted for Trump with anticipation, hoping that there would be some type of movement in terms of pulling the COVID shots off the market, helping the COVID-19 vaccine injured, and going back and looking at what happened in terms of those atrocities during the dark days and the lockdowns of 2020-21. That never happened. Another fracturing of Donald Trump's base. And now the final ultimate betrayal, the president who promised no new wars, no wars at all, is now getting the United States involved in what will likely be a quagmire in Iran. It is open-ended. It is ambiguous. There's no clear objectives as to what the mission is and when the mission will be achieved. Hegseth is calling this a war, as you all know. The President of the United States of America and the head of the Department of Defense do not have the power or the authority to start a war. That is reserved for Congress, but they, of course, are going forward anyway. And you see the headline of today's show. From my perspective, Trump's war, illegal, immoral, unconstitutional, and he just might use it to cancel the midterms. Marjorie Taylor Greene retweeted one of my tweets from over the weekend. One of the things that I'm concerned about with this new escalation regarding the United States military in Iran and in the Middle East is that it will escalate and it will or could result in violence here within the interior of the United States of America. Hegseth now coming out recently and saying, yes, this could lead to domestic terror attacks in the U.S. Secretary Hegseth said the U.S. is ready for possible Iranian sleeper cell attacks on U.S. soil. And we have some of Donald Trump's biggest supporters on the right, people like Alex Jones, warning about terror attacks here in the interior of the U.S. This is a perfect opportunity for Donald Trump to declare another emergency here in the United States of America and potentially cancel elections, the midterm elections. And I pushed out a tweet yesterday. Trump doesn't seem to care about the midterms. This is wildly, wildly unpopular. A Bloomberg poll came out. 7 out of 10 Americans oppose the strikes in Iran. And Trump has made no effort to persuade them otherwise. So it appears this administration couldn't care less about what the American people think and what his own base thinks. The base is absolutely fracturing. I have a piece here from Vox regarding the just tumbling public support of Donald Trump. But that doesn't seem to matter. And for that reason, I pushed this out. Trump doesn't seem to care about the midterms or elections. Who wants to bet he'll declare a national emergency similar to the lockdowns of 2020 for what we now know was a fake pandemic, a scamdemic, all of the death and destruction, the destruction of our economy, the massive amount of money printing and spending, which is leading to the inflationary crisis that we're dealing with today, an economic crisis in this country, all a result of Trump's original declaration of an emergency for the scamdemic. It now appears he could declare another national emergency and use that declaration to expand the power and the scope of the office of the presidency at the executive branch, and also expand the military police state, expand the surveillance state, the tech surveillance state, all of the things that we've been warning about with this president, digital ID, massive surveillance, digital currencies, all of the things. The declaration of the emergency gives the president vast powers that are unconstitutional, but we have seen Donald Trump wield those powers. We have seen President Joe Biden wield those powers. And now it appears that Trump is going to quadruple down on that. There is no peace here in the United States of America. There is no prosperity here in the United States of America. Nothing that Donald Trump promised would come of his election is playing out, and it's just one disaster after another. I don't know how else to look at this. But yes, he could declare an emergency because of Iran or some other manufactured crisis and try to cancel elections in November, potentially securing for himself a dictatorship here in the US. And if you think that's hyperbolic, there are multiple reports now out that there is a very serious effort to look at suspending the midterm elections by supporters close to the president. And former Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted in response to my statement that, yes, she could see it, absolutely insane. And this has now been pushed out on other outlets as well. So we're in a lot of danger here in the United States of America, incredibly dangerous times. Today, we're going to welcome Jeff Berwick into the Joy virtual studio for the very first time. He is the dollar vigilante, and he has been absolutely correct about a lot that has been happening in the United States, especially since the lockdowns of 2020. He is an anarchist. He is the creator of the Dollar Vigilante newsletter, and he is also one of the founders of Anarchapulco. They were meeting in Mexico during the false flag event, which he experienced in real time, which is absolutely extraordinary last week. All of the chaos in Mexico and Puerto Vallarta. Jeff Berwick was there. He experienced it. And I mean, he is of the mindset that pretty much everything that we see happening on the political stage is a stage. It is absolutely theater, from assassination attempts to what happened during COVID-19, going all the way back to the Challenger. This guy, I mean, he is, fully in the mindset that much of this is theater. It's not actually real, even though there are very real human casualties, but that so much of what we see crossing the news headlines each day is manufactured false flag events, including what's happening in Iran. And they are designed to move us towards predetermined totalitarian outcomes. And so we are going to be speaking with Jeff Berwick about what is happening with the economy, what what is happening in Iran, what is happening in Mexico and Puerto Vallarta, and how to survive what is coming, the de-dollarization of the globe. China not happy about the United States involvement in Iran, Russia not happy about it as well, and things are really heating up. So before we get to Jeff, I do want to bring big thank you to Inez Annie Cyrus, who is producing the SJ show today, and she is an analyst herself. Annie has been reporting extensively on the revolution in Iran, what has been happening in Iran. She speaks the language. She has sources out of Iran, and I thought it would be a good idea to bring her in via audio today for just, for about 10 minutes or so to give us her thoughts on what is happening in Iran, her thoughts on what is happening here in the United States of America. She is here in the States, and her thoughts about involvement in all of this. And so, Annie, if you want to grab the mic, there she is. I thought of you immediately, Annie, over the weekend. I mean, there have been wars and rumors of wars for the past few weeks and months. Certainly, there has been a lot of pressure on Donald Trump to get involved in Iran and in the Middle East. And that came to a head over the weekend with the U.S. getting involved. What are your thoughts on what is happening in Iran, and what are you hearing from your sources?
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me the microphone. Let me address a few things you said, and your audience is pretty familiar with me, but I need to make few things clear. I have three different angles to look at this: as an Iranian, as an American, and then as an investigative journalist. Mm-hmm. So not necessarily everything I say comes from defending one or bashing one. Now, that being said, right. Let me address the concern by whatever his name is. What's his name? Pete Hegseth?
Yeah.
United States of America has been under the thumb of sleeper cells since September 11. That is nothing new. To bring that up today, it's what you said, an excuse. Right. I will agree. Yes, we had the situation in Pakistan and Iraq where they tried to storm our embassy and consulate. Yes, we just took out, and I should be more specific, IDF just took out the boss of Islamic movement. So yes, to be expected. However, that is nothing new. And also, if our FBI would get ahead of this curve and make an arrest of everybody identified who was welcomed under Biden administration into America with ties to ISIS, Al-Qaeda, IRGC, we wouldn't be worried today. So that's the first thing I want to address. I agree. We are facing that possibility, but that didn't start over the weekend.
Right.
Second thing I want to address, since the 12 Days War of last year, I have been the loudest voice of saying United States of America should stay out of it. I will repeat the same thing today. As an American, I am on the side of we had no business being there over the weekend or tomorrow, day after. I'm not being ungrateful as an Iranian side of mine. But looking at it as an investigative journalist, Israel could have handled this on their own. We had no business being there. Most importantly, after what we did in Venezuela, emptying our own country to send all of our military to Middle East was a huge risk. What if Venezuela decide to retaliate tomorrow morning? Do we even have enough strength in America to defend ourselves? No, we don't.
Right.
So that's my American side of things. As an Iranian, I'm very happy about what happened. A man who personally destroyed my childhood was killed. So on that note, I will say I cried, I danced, I laughed all at the same time. Right. For first time in my life, Shannon, I understood the feeling of what justice feels like. So I won't lie. 90% of Iranians inside Iran, outside of Iran are celebrating this. I have dozens of videos from inside Iran confirmed by myself that people are literally calling. Now, this is important. They're calling for Bibi to finish the job. They're not calling for Trump to finish the job. You see the difference here? They're even relying on Bibi. They know why we got involved. And I'm going to say this, and a lot of people are going to be triggered, so trigger warning. The only reason we got involved on Saturday is because Trump is always looking to steal credit. So he could go on air and he could say, we killed Khamenei. Excuse me, you bragged about saving Khamenei's life in July of last year. So anybody who's buying it, good for you. The rest of us know you didn't. You got involved. 4 of our servicemen were killed in last 2 days. That didn't have to happen.
That's right.
It didn't.
Right.
Again, I'll repeat. I understand the disagreement me and you and me and most of your audience have over IDF and Israel. But Israel has what it takes to finish this. This has always been a war between Israel and Iran for 47 years. We should have let them finish it. But if we did that, that Trump would look really weak, wouldn't he? He wouldn't be the one to steal the throne and brag about it. So I'm grateful for those who stepped in. I'm grateful for the ultimate sacrifice 4 of our soldiers made. However, I stand my point that we did not have to. Trump chose to get involved.
Right.
This wasn't a desperate situation where we had to get involved.
Of course not.
And
no,
also,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Good. Well, originally they said that, the original justification was that Iran was going to strike first U.S. assets in the Middle East, and the Pentagon is now saying otherwise. There was mention of Iran having weapons of mass destruction or, preventing them from getting a nuclear weapon. And Ted Cruz has just come out now and admitted there was no imminent threat of Iran deploying a nuke or even having one. So all of the excuses that they are making, and this is reminding me of weapons of mass destruction post 9/11. This is reminding me of Donald Trump came out and said, oh, well, it's, the timeline is going to be a 4-week process, right? It's always been 4 weeks. We figure it'll be 4 weeks to flatten Tehran, right? I mean, I'm getting flashbacks of 2 weeks to flatten the curve, 2 weeks to slow the spread, right? This is just going to be temporary. And from my perspective, this is an open-ended now involvement in something that is none of our business. And certainly, IDF, Bibi Netanyahu, I think Bibi is a war criminal. I think that he is a dictator himself. I don't think that he has any moral high ground when it comes to what is happening in Iran. And people might disagree with me on that. Annie, you might disagree with me as well. But frankly, what happens in the Middle East should stay in the Middle East. And to your point, Annie, let them figure it out. Right? I don't speak the language. I don't know what's going on there. But the fact now that the U.S. is going to be dragged into this, and as a result, we could potentially have terror cells now in the U.S. operating, then justifying a further expansion of the United States military police state and military occupation of our own country is outrageous to me. But you see, it's all there on a silver platter now. They can justify any type of atrocity committed against the American people because now they will have the National Emergency Declaration. And I would not be surprised if there weren't some sort of terror attack here in the interior of the U.S., whether it's a false flag. It probably would be a false flag. And we're going to be talking to Jeff Berwick about that in just a moment because he's the expert on false flags. The expert on it's absolutely fascinating. Again, we don't all have to agree on everything with this, but, we're going to start here. We're going to be covering this all week long, guys. It just seems like it seems like we have now triggered something that is going to move very quickly, and we're going to have our heads on straight. But Annie, go ahead and your thoughts on those statements, and then before I let you go and we bring Jeff in, do you think that the Iranian people, do you think that these actions taken by IDF now involving the United States of America, do you think that despite whatever their intentions are or whatever the purposes were, do you think that there is a possibility that the people of Iran can throw off this terrible dictatorship and rise up as a culture to embrace freedom again? I know that's what you're hoping for. Do you think there's a shot?
There is most certainly a shot, especially as of about 5 a.m. this morning, Eastern time, local time here. There is a good chance for the fact that historically it has never been a time where a supreme leader was taken out and within 24 hours a replacement was not placed in. This morning, Iran handed over power to IRGC because they couldn't even replace him. That is a huge development because with 120 besieged building taken out, IRGC is really short-handed to handle the war while handling the uprising. So this is the best possibility Iranian people inside Iran have ever faced. And again, we do have elected by people, including myself. I voted for him as an exile leader of Iran. He's standing by with his team ready to take over. So I want to assure Americans this is not going to be another Iraq, Afghanistan, or Libya. I promise you that. If you trust me enough to understand my analysis, not saying it because I'm Iranian, I'm saying it because I've been tracking this since June of last year until today.
Yes.
And I want to address one of your comments, if it's okay.
Sure.
Futurist said something of 156 students, kids were killed, 165 Iranian elementary school girls, children targeted, bombed and killed, and she says finish the job. Futurist, number one, it's war. War has casualties. 165 Iranian elementary girls weren't killed. It was 47, but I understand media tend to. But I'll tell you what, in less than 3 weeks, 53,000 Iranians were killed in the hands of Khamenei. So we have to look at it that way. Also,
Yeah, I worry that BB coming in. I worry about coming in and taking out a dictator and then installing their own
but
dictator.
here's the
That's
beauty
what I
of
worry
it.
about.
This is terrible to say, but that we're okay with that too because Bibi Netanyahu has endorsed our candidate, Crown Reza Pahlavi. So he doesn't have somebody else. Now, am I concerned about Trump trying it? Yes, because Trump has the Republican Party has endorsed the MEK head, which is the Islamist Marxist jihadist group that was in our terror list. So my concern is America trying to install their own dictatorship in Iran, not Israel, America. But also another comment, I will defend Bibi here. Bibi did not drag us into this war. We were willing to do it. I just said it. They were going in. They didn't request help. We got in there by our own choice. And I understand. I really understand everybody's mindset. And I respect everybody's opinion. But
Absolutely.
when truth and fact shows that this was Trump's choice for his own benefits, it's not fair to blame it on Bibi. This was Trump's choice. Not Bibi's pressure, not Bibi's begging for help. This was Trump choosing to get involved because, as I said, credit, he loves attention. He loves attention. And if we go with what you said, Shannon, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even think about the, cancellation or removing the midterm. That makes sense as another agenda of Trump. But I want to be very clear, as an Iranian, as an American, I do not believe for a split second that President Trump cared even for a split second for Iranian people whatsoever. So we're not buying that part as much as Fox is trying to sell us that. The rest is, again, we need to back off. Israel doesn't need our help. We need to back off.
Yeah. I'm not there with you, Annie, but I do absolutely respect your analysis, and I do have to defer to you to a certain extent because you speak the language, you understand the long history of these conflicts in the Middle East and Iran, and I am hoping and praying that you are right, that this is going to usher in a new peace and a new prosperity and freedom for the people of Iran, even though I really highly doubt that Bibi Netanyahu's intentions are noble at all. But
it's not. Let me tell you what his intentions are. He went after the supreme leader in Iran and IRGC for the fact because he knows when there is no Khamenei, there is no funding for Hezbollah and Hamas. He is not caring for Iranian people either. That's not the case. Right. He knows that the quote-unquote board of peace will expand quickly and come to place in their favor if Khamenei is not in power. That's his agenda. No, I don't think he's doing it because he loves Iranians either. He's phrasing it all day long that this is for Iranian people, so he's Trump. But no, they all have their own agenda.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes the agenda is forever war, conflict after conflict after conflict, so that the people in power can solidify their power, expand the scope of their power, and enrich themselves at the expense of regular people and freedom. And so we're going to keep an eye on all of this. And Annie, I'd like to get you in a week or so and to go a little more in depth into your story. But I appreciate everything that you've been doing, everything you've been researching. How can people find your platform so that they can access your reporting as we move forward?
The best place is my Substack, liveuptofreedom.substack.com, where I report direct videos from inside Iran, not IDF, not Channel 12 of Israel, nor Fox. Inside Iran videos, I translate them myself, I verify them myself, and I post them regularly, probably 2 every minute. And also, if it's okay for me to say, for everybody concerned about sleeper cells in America, I suggest you pick up your, you place your pre-order of my book coming out, The Architecture of Jihad. There is way more danger we're facing than terror cell attacks in America when it comes to jihad. That book will explain every other aspect of government shaking hands of jihadists in America and turning America to what we see today.
Right. Okay. Very good. Annie, thank you so much for everything. And we'll have you in to overview your book in just a couple weeks. Okay. Congratulations on that, by the way. Huge accomplishment.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Shannon.
All right. That is Annie Cyrus. She is the producer of The Shannon Joy Show. And considering what is happening in her home country, I definitely wanted to give her an opportunity to let you all know her perspective and what she sees happening here. And I really appreciate that perspective. When we come back, we're going to bring in Jeff Berwick for the very first time on the Shannon Joy Show. He is the dollar vigilante, and I just find him to be absolutely fascinating. Again, he is the king of the false flags. He has identified so many false flags out there. And I mean, there have been a lot of whoppers. He was just recently at Anarchapulco, and I was so proud of the organizers and the attendees of Anarchapulco and all of that chaos, right? Remember when Mexico was burning and Puerto Vallarta was besieged by the gangstas? They were mad about the U.S. involvement in the taking out of one of the heads of the Mexican cartel, whatever. Rather than being fearful and afraid and allowing them to come in and lock them down, shut them down, and expand the power of the state, the organizers of Anarchapulco actually called their bluff and continued with the conference. They weren't afraid. And literally after 24 hours, everyone was out having a beer. The beaches were open. People were out on the streets. The airports were open back up. And it's just an extraordinary example of calling that bluff, how to figure out when it is a false flag, what is a false flag, and how we can move forward in courage and with bravery, not succumbing to fear, which is what they intend for us. We have to battle against that. When we come back, we're going to bring Jeff Berwick in and spend the rest of the hour with him here on the SJ Show. We're going to have him for about an hour, and I can't wait to hear his story and what he thinks of everything that is going on in the world today. So keep it tuned right here. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, the Jeff Berwick for the first time in the Joy Virtual Studio. Keep it tuned. I want to invite you. I would love to meet you. I know that we have the website up for the Summit for Truth and Wellness. We are meeting live here in Rochester, New York on March 21st for a full day. It is the 2026 fourth annual Summit for Truth and Wellness. I will be there live along with Dr. William Mackis, a leader in cancer care using ivermectin, fembendazole, membendazole. He has treated over 8,000 patients. He just got his medical license in the state of Florida. He is revolutionizing how cancers are treated. He is curing cancers. We're going to be talking about cancer care, cancer prevention with Dr. William Mackis. And we're going to be joined by Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. She's going to be coming up from the great state of Texas to be with us live in Rochester, New York. And also, of course, the amazing Sasha Latapova, among other distinguished guests. We are about halfway to sell out on this summit. So we have about 4 weeks, 5 weeks before the summit. I want to encourage all of you, if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, go ahead and get those tickets because I do anticipate a full sellout. We have limited seating. It's going to be a beautiful morning of presentations, and then we are going to break and have a lovely luncheon afterwards. Plenty of time to meet and greet, to meet the speakers, fellowship, collaborate. It's just going to be an absolutely beautiful event. I love hosting it. And of course, all the proceeds, everything that we earn over the expenses to put the summit together will go to Americans for Healthcare Alternatives, an amazing organization that I have been working with for many years. Their mission is to provide an alternate or an alternative to the medical industrial complex with information, seminars, and they are seeking to build a brick and mortar wellness center right here in Rochester, New York. We want to help them get closer to that goal. Hey everyone, I am so proud to recommend Shift Gold to this audience as the gold standard for metals purchasing and investing. I couldn't ask for a better partner to help people understand gold and silver and use them as strategic instruments to protect their family's financial future. Peter Schiff's teaching on markets has shaped my understanding of how economies grow and why they collapse. And I've used them as a critical source for my daily broadcast for over 10 years. The Shannon Joy Show audience already knows and loves Peter because he has been such a treasured educator over the years. He is now the preeminent source for rock-solid financial analysis around the world. And this is because he understands the immutable laws of natural markets and his stalwart unwillingness to veer from absolute truths regardless of economic fads and political pressures. Bottom line, he doesn't sell out. And that means a lot to me. I trust Shift Gold, and you can too. Go to shiftgold.com/joy today to get started. You'll find some of the lowest spot prices for gold and silver and critical information on protecting your retirement savings with a gold or silver IRA. That's www.shiftgold.com/joy. Hedge against the chaos with our friends over at Shift Gold. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. We are just a little over 3 weeks away from the Summit for Truth and Wellness, live right here in Rochester, New York. I am hosting this event. We are joining with our friends over at AFA, Americans for Healthcare Alternatives, to host Dr. William Mackis, Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, and the great Sasha Latapova here for a full day event in Rochester, New York. Make sure that you get your tickets. We are a little bit over halfway to sell out. We are limited now at 250 max in the room. We're making it a little bit smaller than some of our previous summits, but it is the 4th annual, and this is going to be an unbelievable summit. Dr. William Mackis is the keynote. He will be presenting on preventing and treating cancers in the 21st century. And he is an absolute pioneer in cancer treatments using a combination of ivermectin, fembendazole, membendazole to actually cure cancers. He is so good at what he is doing. He's treated over 8,000 patients that the Canadian government is trying to put him in prison. He might be exiling himself to the United States of America. He just got his medical license approved in the state of Florida under Surgeon General Joe Ladapo, and he will be pioneering cancer research there. His presentation, absolutely critical, and I cannot wait to welcome him here in Rochester, New York. So make sure you get your tickets today. Go to theshannonjoy.com. That's theshannonjoy.com right now to get your tickets before they sell out. All right, without further ado, let's bring in the great Jeff Berwick for the very first time here in the Joy Virtual Studio. He is the Dollar Vigilante. You can follow him on the Twit. He has, weekly walk-in talks. He is an expert in cryptocurrencies and in finance. His newsletter helping so many Americans, people across the globe, figure out how to survive during the dollar demise. And that is what we are seeing, de-dollarization. We're going to be talking with Jeff about that in just a bit. But he was also the host of Anarchast. It was an interview style anarcho-capitalist podcast. You also, of course, founded and are an organizer with Anarchapulco and just an activator helping people move towards self-sufficiency and freedom. Jeff Berwick, thank you so much for being with us today on the SJ Show. Really glad to meet you in the studio for the first time. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Shannon. It's a pleasure to be on.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned in the last segment, also an expert in the false flags, man. I mean, I find you to be incredibly interesting. The walk and talks that you do from your compound in Mexico, observing the apocalypse, which is what it feels like today. The headlines moving absolutely so quickly right now. We will talk about what's going on in Iran. I really do want to get your thoughts on that. But before we get started, if you can just kind of walk the audience, it's the first time you're on the show, just walk the audience through your life, your experiences, and how you have come to the place where you are today, really questioning virtually everything that happens on a national and international stage by the people who are quite vicious, very controlling, people who want to control things. That took a lifetime for you to get to this spot. But if you could let us in on how you have come to shape your opinions about where we are today in the world, that would be great.
Sure, it might take a little bit.
That's okay.
It's a long story,
Yeah.
but yeah, I kind of grew up. I grew up in Canada, in a place called I call it Dedmonton, Canada. It's like -40 for like half the winter, and I know that's the exact same in Celsius as it is in Fahrenheit, because we know that because that's where it usually is in the wintertime. So I was kind of always asking my parents, why do we live here? And my dad's answer was, well, we came from the Yukon, which was a lot colder.
There we
So I
go.
was like, okay, let's keep going. But they put me into the government indoctrination camps, which people call public schools. And very quickly, I was questioning everything. And I saw it very quickly as being a prison for children, which really it is when you really look at it. And I rarely went at all, but I did a deal with my principal to just do the tests, and then I passed that. And then I actually went on to start. I was actually basically a computer nerd most of my life. So the whole time that I was supposed to be in school, I rarely went, and I was just a computer hacker back in like the 1980s with a Apple II Plus clone computer. I had to solder
Wow.
myself together from back of a comic book in Vietnam at the time,
Wow.
because my family couldn't afford the $666 for an Apple computer. Interesting choice of numbers they chose there, of course. And uh, so
Interesting, right?
so yeah, so then I went on to start an internet company as soon as the internet came out. And most people thought I was crazy. They thought it was just a fad, that it wasn't going to catch on, but it was very obvious to me that it was. And I started a financial internet company, and it actually grew to about 7 different countries, 250 staff. It was worth about $240 million, and we were going to go public on the NASDAQ when 9/11 happened on September 11, 2001. And that's when the tech bubble at that time collapsed.
Yeah.
And my partner at the time actually tried to kill himself because our company went from basically almost $1 billion company to almost zero overnight. And I couldn't understand it. And he jumped out of an 8-story window, and he landed in a small fountain, so he didn't die. But a few weeks later, he came to my apartment on crutches, and he handed me this big, thick book. And he said, read this. And he just hobbled off. And it was The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin, which
Hmm.
really goes into how the central banks work and stuff like that. And I was blown away. I actually read that phone book size book in about 2 days. And I was like, why didn't anyone tell me that's how this all works? Because it explained all these bubbles and how they happen and things like that. So then after that, I ended up selling my internet company, and I bought a sailboat, and I thought, I'm going to sail around the world because I don't believe anything they're telling us on the television programming. And while I was doing that, I began to research into 9/11 because I didn't immediately because I was so busy with my tech company. And as soon as I did, I quickly realized that it wasn't a guy in a cave in Afghanistan, and it was basically the CIA and Mossad who had done that. So I came to that realization. And at the same time, I was still looking into the financial, the monetary stuff. Got into Austrian economics. And then I started the Dollar Vigilante in 2008 after that crash happened, that massive crash that spawned the movie The Big Short,
Right.
which seems like so long ago now. It's incredible. Once I saw that happen, because I was expecting that, because I understood how the markets actually worked at that point, how central banks work and how things basically operate. So when that happened, I launched the Dollar Vigilante in 2010. Soon after that, I launched a show called Anarchist, as you mentioned, about anarcho-capitalism. It basically talks about true freedom.
Mm.
And then I launched Anarchapulco soon after that in 2015, which is still going on. We just finished our 12th year.
Wow.
And all along the way, especially as I was on, oh, I didn't mention I sank my boat in El Salvador
I was going to
one
ask you
year to
about
the
that.
day after I bought it. Yeah, so that was also an interesting experience. The El Salvador Navy said they saved me, but they didn't. But I didn't know because they all spoke Spanish.
Oh,
I just knew I was on the front page of the newspaper.
that's wild.
But basically, I went on this world tour and I went to about 100 different countries. And I really started to realize that everything we're told about the entire world is basically propaganda and
Mm.
lies. It's nowhere even close to the truth. So all of that combined, I basically just began looking deeper and deeper into things. And now I've basically, for the last, definitely since the COVIDs, which I immediately recognized it for what it was, because I'd already looked into how the HIV/AIDS was another fraudsy scam. And so after all that, I just started walking with my dogs a lot and just talking about my thoughts on everything. And so it's not like I'm an expert on false flags, but I've seen so many now. And of course, 9/11 is a massive one
Hmm.
that I guess you could say that, yeah, I guess you could call me an expert at this point because there have been
Yeah.
so many that I've had to look into.
Well, let's talk about false flags because, there are the big ones and the little ones and everything in between. And I do believe that more and more Americans are beginning to sense that something is very wrong. And I think there was a whole group of Americans who woke up during and after COVID, right? That was an event that has divided history. For me in my life, there will be pre-COVID and post-COVID. My life will be divided in those two times because that was such an impactful event for myself and my family. But especially since the release of the Epstein files, which has shocked so many Americans, when you realize the nature and the character of the people who are in control of things in this country, the fact that they're Democrats and Republicans and they're working together. Very interesting development over the weekend. Bill Clinton vouched for his very, very good buddy Donald Trump, telling everyone that he had nothing to do with Epstein, right? He has been largely exonerated. So you can see the club there, right? Like they have each other's back, they work together. This two-party political thing is a complete fraud. And I can tell you for the first time, Jeff, when I am talking to normies, normal people, who do not pay very, very close attention to politics, and even people who do pay close attention to politics, more and more people are there. They're like, something is very wrong. So I think it would be helpful to talk about a false flag and what it is and what it isn't. People have different ideas about, certain events and whether or not they are false flags, but I like your definition of it. I have heard you explain it before, and I think it would be helpful to the audience to understand your perspective there and how these false flags are used to achieve goals to distract us, divide us, and set up an excuse or a reason for government or people in positions of power to expand their power and their wealth at the expense of freedom and liberty and we the little people. So I think that'd be a good start, and then we can go into some of the different false flags if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, false flags have been around for a long time. Almost every major sort of war is started usually with a false flag. Even going back to Germany, the Reichstag fire, that was a false flag. They blamed it on the communists in order to get more people to support them and stuff like that. 9/11's got to be the most biggest false flag of our lifetimes, where they said it was a guy in a cave in Afghanistan, and some guys with box cutters managed to knock down 3 buildings with 2 planes at free fall speed, which makes no sense. And architects for 9/11 truth, there's thousands of them have already spoken that that's not possible.
Mm.
That was clearly, once you look into it, a CIA and Mossad event. And that's why I find it so bizarre that people are still even listening to the government. The US government actually did 9/11, and this is obvious. Anyone who looks into it, if anyone's out there and they're like, he's crazy, you just haven't looked into it. If you look into it, if you actually go in with an open mind and look into it for a couple hours, you'll find that nothing makes any sense whatsoever.
Right.
Of course, they had Osama bin Laden, who's actually worked for the CIA. His CIA name was Tim Osman. Of course, the bin Laden family were best friends with the Bush family. They both worked together on 9/11 watching it, and then they flew the whole family out afterwards because that was part of the operation as well. In fact, I would say for anyone out there who's still doesn't get or understand 9/11, just watch James Corbett, 9/11 explained in 5 minutes. It's probably the best short form video that just shows that every single thing about it was not what they said it was. So
Wow.
9/11 was a huge one, right? And
Yeah.
then, of course, we've had so many other ones. October 7th in Israel. I call it Israel. That's what it is. Israel's a Rothschild terror state is basically what it is. And it's ruled by people who are satanic pedivores who actually eat children, as is a
Okay.
lot of the people in the US. That's another story that's interesting. But yeah, of
And that
course,
came out of
October
the Epstein
7th.
files, though. Isn't that what we're seeing? Not to break you up, though, I mean, because that's a big statement you just you just made there. So this is where I'm going though with it. This is why the Epstein files have been so jarring to so many people because the nature of the content is unfathomable, right? The child rape and abuse and potential murder and even allegations or insinuations of cannibalism, which is just like really, really hard for people, myself included, to wrap their minds around. But we're seeing some of these things, and that's, so you know, I think that this is why people are now open to the understanding that these are really, really bad people. These are predators. And I didn't understand that, Jeff, until COVID, until they locked elderly people in rooms. I mean, torturous situations with the lockdowns and then the rollout of the poison shots and the mass poisoning of millions of people. They couldn't care less about it. And that's when I began to realize that these are very bad people, very, very bad people, you know?
Yeah, I've been aware of that for a long time. I've been a kind of a follower of David Icke for about 30 years, and
Mm.
he's talked all about this, but he was mostly shunned and shamed by a lot of people because he said that, at the highest level, they're not even human, which is basically true. And with all this stuff coming out now, it's not a surprise at all to me. I've been aware of this for quite a long time. In fact, I was talking about Jeffrey Epstein before most people on Earth had even heard his name. There was a number of us, even in Acapulco. James Corbett was talking about it back then. Luke Rudowski used to. There was numerous sort of alternative media people that we were all talking about it before anyone even knew about it because we had become aware of it. And then even after Jeffrey Epstein was supposedly killed in a jail in New York, which is highly unlikely that that was the case. There's a lot more evidence that he was taken out the night before. But soon after that, I actually invaded Epstein's Island to go check it out for myself. So we actually went and like basically invaded the island and tried to find as much information as we could. But by that point, it had been mostly all cleared out. Um,
Wow.
but that's how long I've been looking into this stuff. So
Yeah.
this is no surprise at all. I've been talking about this for a long time. The people in control of most of these things in the world are an evil that you cannot even believe. A regular human could never even believe that this is even like something that another person can do. And I would say you have to kind of even wonder if they're even human, because they do the most evil things. They torture, they eat babies, they rape babies. They are the sickest people, and these are all the people in the Epstein files, including Donald Trump. 35,000 mentions, I think, if not much more than that. Uh, but it's great. It's actually starting to come out, and people are starting to realize all this stuff now. And this is all stuff I've been talking about for a long time, including the left-right paradigm. I've been saying
Yeah.
that for 15, 20 years, that this is all a show, that it's all set up to keep people basically enslaved and keep going back every 4 years into a closet with a shower curtain. Stop me if this sounds insane. They go into a closet with a shower curtain, and inside is an Israeli voting machine. And then they choose between a red elephant with a pentagram on it and a blue donkey with a pentagram on it. And they think they're in charge of their own country. It's pretty incredible. But people are finally waking up to that now.
Yeah, they certainly are. And the false flag has a large role in the expansion of their power and their ability to keep us distracted, right? So some people believe, in terms of a false flag, you mentioned 9/11, something I would never have thought about prior to COVID, right? I wouldn't even it wouldn't even be in the periphery. I've always accepted these narratives throughout my life, and it's only when I had the opportunity to launch my show and actually observe and look for patterns and observe politicians and the ways that they work together and the ways that they, deceive us. I wouldn't be open to this type of thinking. But you mentioned, in terms of the false flags, some people misunderstand. They think that you're saying that these events don't actually happen. But in some cases they do, right? I mean, there are certainly casualties involved. In 9/11, there were, many casualties involved in that. But what is the ultimate goal of the false flag, and how prevalent do you think that they are in our society today?
Yeah, I should just make clear that a false flag is basically an event, usually a very big, major, violent event that is blamed on someone who didn't do it, and
Mm,
it's done by the people who want to affect a change. So that's something called the Hegelian dialectic, which they always do, which is problem, reaction, solution. So 9/11 was a good example of that. That brought in the Patriot Act. It brought in the forever wars in the Middle East, brought in the Afghan occupation, brought in you couldn't wear your shoes at the airport for like 20 years. You had to take them off. That
it's
was actually a
crazy.
Michael Chertoff scam too. He set that all up because he was the guy who sold those scanners at the airport. So they got a guy on a plane, and they had him light his shoe on fire, and then Fox News and CNN went all crazy, and then Michael Chertoff made like hundreds of millions or billions of dollars from that. But that's
Horrifying.
just one of many, many, many things that were all involved in that. But yeah, that's what a false flag is. Another example of what you could call a false flag is the Charlie Kirk shooting. They blame it on a kid who's a tranny or something, who ran up on a roof, constructed a rifle, took a shot, hit him square right in the artery of the neck, deconstructed the rifle, put it all back together, down below, ran off. No one saw him. And anyway, it's a crazy story, just like all their stories.
Right.
The most likely is Charlie Kirk was starting to speak up about Israel, and
Hmm.
then they basically took him out. And that's basically what these kind of people do. So even that, in a way, is kind of like a false flag. Now that's
Right.
very different than a hoax, for example. And there's lots of hoaxes, like the Boston Marathon hoax. There was actually no one who died in that one. It was all staged with fake blood. Another kind of hoax would be the Donald Trump assassination attempt, with they just missed him, but
Just nick the ear.
yeah, just
Yeah.
nicked the ear, and then he got up, fight, 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 as they lowered the flag down for the iconic photo as all the photographers came in. See, the thing that most people don't understand is, and they actually came out and said this directly on 60 Minutes last year, is Mossad, which is the CIA of Israel, which works hand in hand with the CIA. They're basically the same thing.
Mm.
Came on 60 Minutes and said, we're the producers, we're the directors, we're the main actors, the world is a stage. and they are the ones doing all of these things. They actually said that on 60 Minutes, and that's actually true. So most
Right.
of these events, going back even to the moon landing, is
Oh
all
no,
fake stuff.
don't do it. Don't do it, Jeff.
uh,
But
I can't
listen,
keep quiet about these things. I'm sorry, but yeah, like that was obvious, right? Like
yeah.
Stanley Kubrick filmed that, and then he actually tried to, I think, dissolve himself of the guilt by actually putting out a movie called Eyes Wide Shut and actually showing what the real people of the world who are in control, what they're like. And he actually did. He put in like a lot of the evil stuff that they do, and so they killed him on the night before they put the movie out, and
Wow.
took out all the bad parts out of that movie. So yeah,
Wow.
this has been going like this is what people need to realize. Everything that you think is real, if it's on the television programming or even told by the government or anything like that, it's none of it's real.
The
You are
screens.
basically, yeah, they've got you enslaved. They just play with you. They play all these things, all the wars. The Vietnam War, Gulf of Tonkin, that was a staged event. It wasn't real to get them involved into that war. These are mostly like the banksters, people like the Rothschilds. They fund both sides of every single war and they profit off of it and they just have fun and they like to kill everyone while they do it,
Oh
including all the
Lord.
world wars, the Afghan stuff. There's been so many of them, and now they're doing Iran, of course, which is
Right.
again another completely like needless, unnecessary terror attack by the U.S. and Israel
Yeah.
in Iran, just to further their agendas. Basically, the Greater Israel Project is the agenda there. Donald Trump completely is subservient to them. He
Mm,
always has been, especially since he was bankrupt in the 1990s. He was bailed out basically by the Rothschilds. And ever
yes.
since then, he's been in total control of them. And they actually do these things. They're incredibly smart. That's the thing that people have a hard time getting their head around. They plan these things out decades in advance because the real actual things that are doing this aren't even human. That's the thing that a lot of people probably can't get their heads around. And I can't show you. I don't have like a photo of the things that are doing it, but it's very clear that it's a non-human entity. It's a consciousness field that actually Christoph Melchizedek, who I follow a lot, says basically has taken over and infected the world for
Yeah.
tens of thousands of years. And you can actually see that. Everything's inverted in this world. The
They,
schools are to make you dumb. The
yeah.
democracy is to make you a slave. The
Yeah.
doctors are there to make you sick. Everything's been inverted. And more religious people will call it Satan, and that's fine. You can call it that. It's a good enough word for it as anything, really.
That's probably the area that I would disagree with you and David. Like I would say, I think that evil is very human. This level of evil could be very human, and I would look at this just through the prism of my faith, which is of good and evil, ultimate good, which is the creator of the universe, God, who is all powerful, all knowing, loving, and creates beauty and love. We see all those things do exist in this world, but then there is the equal and opposite, which is wickedness and Satan and evil. And I think that grappling with evil, people have a different way of coming to an understanding of what that is. But I do think that it is naive. Now, I might not agree with you on you know all of the areas that you touch on, but I do believe that there is a naivete among Americans and people in general about the nature of evil. And I think that it is at our own peril that we ignore that and we just give these people the benefit of the doubt, right? And we've done that for way too long. And I think it's good that people are waking up to some of these things. I think it's dangerous to dive too deeply into conspiracy theories because there are certain things that I can never know, that I can never see. I don't have the expertise in. I don't have all of the tools that would be necessary to determine whether or not this was a conspiracy or wasn't, or was a false flag or wasn't. However, where I am now, Jeff, is that nothing would surprise me. There's no conspiracy out there that would surprise me in terms of the depths of the depravity and the wickedness. I don't need to know all of them. I just need to know what the agenda is resulting from them and know to oppose that, right? So you can think that 9/11 was a conspiracy or not, But I know that I'm opposed to the Patriot Act. I know that I'm opposed to the expansion of the military police state. I know that I'm opposed to mass surveillance and endless wars and all of the prescriptions that they apply, using something like a 9/11 to justify. And I think that's an area that everyone could agree with, right? Regardless of whether you believe, regardless of whether or not you are there in terms of the extent of their operations. Now, I will say today, Jeff, I am much more open to the level of sophistication and coordination. I never would have thought that before, right? And it seems to me now that once you see it, you can't unsee it. These, the psyops and the false flags and the operations. Do you see it that way? I mean, do you think there's area for people to come together there, even if they disagree on kind of who the actual villain is?
Well, that's one thing that we're definitely starting to see is a lot of people finally starting to wake up to a lot of this stuff. So that's great. That's actually the first step. The
Yeah.
first step is actually becoming aware that it actually exists. Now, you might not understand, or I might not even fully understand exactly who, how, where, when, but
Right.
we can get our heads around that this is happening, and most things that we've been told are all lies.
Hmm.
In various ways. And a lot of people are starting to wake up to that in various ways. So what happens now is going to be very interesting. Basically, the way I see it, the power structures of the world are actually beginning to collapse. Even in
Mm.
financial or monetary terms, and that's why I started the Dollar Vigilante, is talking about the eventual collapse of all the fiat currencies, including the US dollar.
Mm.
And we're getting very close to that now. That's why gold and silver have gone parabolic. And you can
Right.
also tell we're getting close to it because they're speeding things up so fast. It's almost like a
Right.
dying animal that's scared. They're
Mm.
just throwing everything at us right now and just hoping they can survive a little bit longer. I think there's a lot of actually good news in the future if you can get through the next few years, but it's going to
Yeah.
be a very, very bumpy ride for the next few years because basically everything that you think has been a part of your life for most of your life, most of it's going to collapse in the next few years. And it's actually a good thing because it's all been taken over by incredibly evil people, and the entire structure, even of government itself. Like the word government is a Latin word, it's actually two words, it's gubernare and mente. Gubernare is to control. Mente is mind. It's mind
Mm.
control. And it's been that way since the start. And what is a government? It's based on extortion, called taxes. It can't survive without that. And how does it enforce it? With violence. So it's a criminal organization based on violence and theft. So this is another thing that people need to begin to wake up to, is that these systems, it's actually good that they all collapse. And they are going to collapse anyway. So it doesn't matter what you think of it, it's going to happen just on a financial and monetary basis. They're trying to do as much as they can right now before everything collapses. They're trying to get in the smart cities. They're trying to get
Right.
people injected with the nanotech so that they can control them and control their minds, which they're already doing to some extent. But they are basically near the end of their rope right now for a number of different reasons. But so there is a lot of good news here. People are waking up, but it's going to be an incredibly bumpy ride over the next few years, especially if you're not prepared. And that's why I say everyone needs to get prepared. And one of the first steps is to actually know what's going on. So that's what we were saying. A lot of people are starting to figure that out now, which is great. Then I would say get physically as good as you can,
Mhm.
get mentally as good as you can, get those programs out, really look at your mind, sit in silence and just look at your mind and what's going on in there and get that all sorted out. And then of course, get really connected to God, basically. That's how you're going to get through the next few years, really.
Yeah.
So those are the main things that I would suggest people do.
Hey, in that arena, I agree with you 100%. Spiritual strength, physical strength, mental strength, getting really plugged into your communities, the people around you, what is real and tactile as opposed to what you see on the screens. Many of us have come to be dependent on these screens, but I do think that we need to understand that they are a tool that has been used in many ways against us. And I want to continue this. We're going to take a quick break because I do want to get into the exciting part of this. And I agree with you. I see a future that is going to be bumpy. I agree with you in the velocity. It seems like everything is accelerating very quickly. The news cycles. I mean, just the headlines that we have been subjected to in the past 12 months have just been. I mean, these are stories that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago would dominate news cycles for weeks or months, even years, right? And now we're just nuclear war, assassination, zombie apocalypse, the aliens are coming, a cartel war in Mexico. It's like the president invades Venezuela, kidnaps the president. I mean, that's just the crazy. These headlines are insane. They're just insane. And I agree with you that it feels like a rabid animal backed into a corner, that they're lashing out in every way. The psyops are getting weaker and weaker. The narratives and the storylines are getting weaker and less believable. And we saw that play out in Puerto Vallarta at the Anarchapulco conference, which I think is a great example of how people are waking up to these psyops and not operating in fear. And I do believe, Jeff, that if we can mimic what you all achieved in Mexico last week in terms of calling the bluff, living your life, going out and living as a human, if we can do that over and over and over, they'll collapse. We will collapse them. And then, it gets to the fun part. We hopefully will have a little bit of peace and prosperity around the corner. Maybe we'll see. But when we come back, I want to talk about that. Puerto Vallarta and beating the false flag, which you guys accomplished, and it was actually brilliant to watch. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. Make sure that you are following Jeff on the Twitter. What is your handle? I want to get your handle right on the Twit. It's Dollar Vigilante?
Yeah, we have two, Dollar Vigilante, and my personal one is Berwick Jeff.
Okay. Berwick Jeff and Dollar Vigilante. Okay, we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Jeff Berwick right here on the Shannon Joy Show. At 123.com/joy. Everything that you're going to need for preparation: generators, solar panels, Faraday products. If you want to disappear and protect yourself from the surveillance state, they have an entire line of amazing Faraday products called dark bags. They're always 10% off at the satellite phone store if you go to sat123.com/joy. That is sat123.com/joy. The satellite phone store has supported the Shannon Joy Show for many years. They are amazing partners, and let's help the companies that help keep the lights on here at the Shannon Joy Show. So if you are in the market for any of their products or services, make sure you use that promo code JOY and go to sat123.com/joy. That's sat123.com/joy. I want to invite you. I would love to meet you. I know that we have the website up for the Summit for Truth and Wellness. We are meeting live here in Rochester, New York on March 21st for a full day. It is the 2026 4th Annual Summit for Truth and Wellness. I will be there live along with Dr. William Mackis, a leader in cancer care using ivermectin, fembendazole, membendazole. He has treated over 8,000 patients. He just got his medical license in the state of Florida. He is revolutionizing how cancers are treated. He is curing cancers. We're going to be talking about cancer care, cancer prevention with Dr. William Mackis, and we're going to be joined by Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. She's going to be coming up from the great state of Texas to be with us live in Rochester, New York, and also, of course, the amazing Sasha Latapova, among other distinguished guests. We are about halfway to sell out on this summit. So we have about 5 weeks before the summit. I want to encourage all of you, if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, go ahead and get those tickets, because I do anticipate a full sellout. We have limited seating. It's going to be a beautiful morning of presentations, and then we are going to break and have a lovely luncheon afterwards. Plenty of time to meet and greet, to meet the speakers, fellowship, collaborate. It's just going to be an absolutely beautiful event. I love hosting it. And of course, all the proceeds, everything that we earn over the expenses to put the summit together will go to Americans for Healthcare Alternatives, an amazing organization that I've been working with for many years. Their mission is to provide an alternate or an alternative to the medical industrial complex with information, seminars, and they are seeking to build a brick and mortar wellness center right here in Rochester, New York. We want to help them get closer to that goal. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Today, for the first time on the SJ Show, Jeff Berwick. He is a dollar vigilante. Make sure you sign up for that newsletter and follow him on Twitter. Make sure you grab the walk-in talks. This is when Jeff goes out and just talks about the world and all the craziness that's going on. That's how I found you, Jeff, and I really appreciate all of your work. Very, very interesting life, and I think your observations are spot on in many ways. I want to talk about what happened in Puerto Vallarta and in Mexico last week. It seemed that there was an agenda and the government or whoever was in control sought to terrorize the good people of Mexico, particularly many of the tourists who were gathered in Puerto Vallarta and other resort areas with the cartel violence. The folks over at in Acapulco, the organizers, you called their bluff. You guys didn't buy it. That was one of the first indications where people were like, something is off here. And you guys continued on with the conference, and then everything just went away. It was like, it's such an interesting story. But if you could tell the audience what went down and what your thoughts were, you were there. I mean, you're an eyewitness to all the events, and your perspective is really interesting.
Yeah, we got to witness another false flag rate, like like we were a part of it, like we're inside of it this time. It was so amazing. We actually just kept the conference going anyway because we had all the top sort of people who know all these like false flags. I was very recognizable quite early on. Max Egan, for example, immediately went out and just started filming with a big smile on his face.
I saw him.
Yeah, I should sort of preface it by saying, so it was like last Sunday that or was it 2 ago? I'm losing track of time in this apocalypse. I think it was just like, yeah, it was just a week ago. It feels like a month ago.
Crazy.
It's so incredible. But yeah, so all of a sudden we're in Puerto Vallarta. We were on our last day of our event. It actually wasn't even in Acapulco. After the event, we have the Dollar Vigilante Summit and the Crypto Vigilante Summit. So it was the Crypto Vigilante Summit on Sunday. And all of a sudden, on every corner in Puerto Vallarta, there was a bus that was on fire. And there was a few shots that went out, but hardly any at all. And they lit a few stores on fire. And they tried to make it look like this huge, massive cartel attack. And here's the thing that, again, most of us at the event already know this, that the so-called big cartels in Mexico, they're actually controlled by the CIA and Mossad. This is very well known. That's even the Mexican government. Some people in the Mexican government came out and said these are all guns given to them by the U.S. and Israel. Israel gave the cartels 26,000 guns. Basically, these cartels are basically the Mexican version of ISIS, which ISIS, of course, is also controlled by Mossad. Al Qaeda is controlled by the CIA. This getting back to when they said the whole world is their stage. They control and they create all of these events.
Right.
I know a lot of people have been watching their news on their television programming all their lives and all the movies, right? That's what the Hollywood is there for as well, to put all these thoughts into your head and all these cartels. Everyone loves the cartel movies and all that. And to some extent, some of those things are true. When they're talking about how they live and stuff like that, that's generally true. But what they don't talk about is who actually controls at the top of a lot of these things. And it's actually the CIA and Mossad again. So what they did was they came and they said they killed a cartel leader, which they could have, or you never know. Like you never know. I don't trust anything that they say.
Right.
But that was the context. And then they lit buses on fire all around Puerto Vallarta and try to make it look like the cartels were going to kill everybody and all these sort of things, which they could have done because they're not afraid to do that. Obviously, 9/11, they weren't afraid to kill lots of people. They kill people in every war. All the wars are started by the same people. But in this particular event, it was just a big show. So we were all there and covering it all. And actually, one of the people at the event went out and looked at some of the vehicles that were burnt, and it had completely melted windshields, which should not have happen in the way that they said it happened. They said that they lit a lot of the cars on fire with Molotov cocktails. Well, if that was the case, the windshield wouldn't have burned. The
Mm,
gas tank might have exploded. It might have broken the windshield, but
right.
it would never have been so hot to actually melt it. So we actually, and we found this out days afterwards. We didn't even know initially
Mm,
that it was probably directed energy weapons again, which has been a huge thing that they've been doing. I've been hit by numerous directed energy weapons at this point. They hit us with a Cat 5 hurricane out of the blue in Acapulco. They've attacked actually in Acapulco like so many times, like about 6 or 7 times now. They don't like us talking about these things, but there was actually a Cat 5 hurricane, which is unheard of, that it hit a major city and hit Acapulco dead on, actually at our event dead on, right before the event. And that came out of the blue. Everyone in Acapulco was asleep. They didn't even know there was a hurricane because it was another form of HARP directed energy weapons, which they do all
okay.
the time. That's what happened in Lahaina as well. That's what happened in California and places like that. You see all these houses and cars all burnt to the ground, except for anything colored blue. And the trees. The trees made of wood don't seem to burn in these fires because they're directed energy weapons. So to some extent, that was probably
Wow.
the case also in Puerto Vallarta. But because like the whole conference was full of people who know how these things work. So
Right.
we just continued on with the conference. We're like, we'll probably be fine. We took, we were careful. We were like, okay,
Yeah.
if we'll have escape routes and stuff like that if we have to, but nothing actually happened to us. And it was actually just a
Wow.
big show that we watched outside of our windows most of the day while we continued on with the conference. Uh, and that really is like in many ways that false flag terror attack basically failed because most people, not all, but most, actually just went back to normal life a few
Right.
hours later. They didn't go into a massive fear state. That's actually what they want. That's a big part of
Mhm.
the reason they do all these things. They live off of that fear. It's called loosh, and so many people just didn't let it bother them too much and didn't ask for big government to come in and save them. They weren't asking for the US government to come in, like Donald
Yeah.
Trump's stuff to come in.
Right.
And so it actually was quite a failed false flag event, but it was very interesting to be right inside of it and witnessing it live.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had mentioned, I saw in another interview that you'd mentioned that they had moved out the local police. So prior
Yes.
to moving the cartel people in and the gangsters, they moved local law enforcement out. They abandoned the area, and it was hilarious. She said they came back after it was all done, the local police force, and no one would give them the burritos. They were all mad at them for leaving or whatever. They wanted to get their tacos or burritos or something. They couldn't, and the shops wouldn't sell it to them because they were mad at them for engaging with these guys. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it was so obvious
Yeah.
because we actually saw the police all throughout the week. They were actually out extorting people, saying you went through a stop sign and stuff. All the usual
Yeah.
stuff that police usually do. Road pirates. And on the morning of Sunday, when all this stuff kicked off, there was none in the entire city. They all got caught.
Wild.
I don't know where they went, but they all weren't in Puerto Vallarta. There was no fire people either. There was none for
Crazy.
the entire event. And there's actually a military base in Puerto Vallarta. I had an Airbnb that was about 300 feet from the naval military base. And they didn't do anything the entire time for actually 2 full days. And then once it was all over, they still didn't come out for the most part. Like
Wow.
they were seen in some places every now and then, but barely at all. And then all these tow trucks and cleanup crews came and just whisked off all the burnt out buses like it was a movie set. And then, like you said, about 3 days later, the police came back and no one would sell them tortillas or anything. They're like, "Get out of here!"
That's great.
So it was quite a failed
Yeah.
false flag event.
Yeah. Well, and this is where I'm seeing I am there, here's some good news about what's happening in Iran. A lot of bad news about the US getting involved in yet another war in the Middle East. There could be, as we have talked about in the show today, they can use this to justify all sorts of horrifying things that the government can do to us to protect us. This could kick off Iranian sleeper cells here in the US or coordinated violence against US citizens, which none of us want, right? But again, they'll use that, right, to move us into the predetermined outcome, which is more surveillance, more control, more theft by the people who run things. And so, but the good news, though, with I think what is happening in Iran, number one, Jeff, like, and this is quick. a clear majority, like 70%, 60 to 70% of Americans, left and right, Democrat and Republican, are 100% opposed to U.S. involvement in whatever is happening in the military east, in the Middle East. And this came out just days after it happened. Like, here we have finally something that Democrats and Republicans can agree on, right? So there's good news there. And the other area, the other thing that I've noticed, Jeff, I mean, I've been out and about with friends and family throughout the weekend when this is all going down. No one's really talking about it. There really isn't a lot of fear out there in terms. It's kind of like, well, this is another headline. It's kind of like the boy who called, or the boy who cried wolf, where you can only frighten people so much. I mean, there's only so many frightening events you can launch at them before they're like, you know what? Okay, fine. The whole world's gonna blow up. Everything's gonna go to hell. We're gonna go to war. But like, what are we gonna? We still have to live, you know? And I'm seeing a resiliency among people where they're just living their lives. They're, yeah, you can do this in the Middle East and try to deploy, these psyops, but we're still going to live our lives. Do you see that? Do you see? Are you emboldened, and are you encouraged by that? And do you see it as well?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing it. People, like I said, are waking up.
Yeah.
Finally, it's just in time, and hopefully in time. But they don't have the full picture yet. But they're starting to realize that most of this stuff is being done to them and by
Yeah.
basically their own governments, really. And when you mentioned some sort of sleeper cells, that is so obviously going to be a CIA Mossad event if they
Yeah.
do it, because that's how they do it. That's what 9/11 was. That's why it's so important that people look back and look into 9/11, because they've been doing this for decades.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, you are seeing people start to wake up to that, and that's great. We'll see what they do next.
Mhm.
This has just been nonstop. I'm sure there's going to be many more things that they're going to be doing in the near future, false flag events, trying to get people all whipped up and stuff like that. But the answer actually to actually end all this stuff is actually not that hard. Like, stop participating in their systems at all. And I mean
Right.
at all. Like, when you realize the entire system's run by satanic pedivores, why are you giving them your money called taxes, right?
Mhm.
There's actually lots of ways to not even have to pay taxes legally, and very like easily. We actually talked about that in Acapulco. Actually, a lot of people should actually get all the replays from Acapulco. This is all we talked about all week. What's going
Interesting.
on and how to protect yourself and how to get outside of the system. So you can go to narcopoco.com for that. But we had Christopher Gronsky of Destination Freedom. You can actually go to his website, destinationfreedom.org. You just file some documents and you don't have to pay taxes anymore, because it's actually all an illusion. All this stuff is an illusion. Everything that they say, even like from the get-go, it's all been an illusion. And there's actually lots of easy ways to get out of it. So you can just stop giving them all your money, stop going and going to the closet with the shower curtain and emboldening them and giving them like you're just
Your
like
consent. Your consent, right?
yeah, you're just consenting. You're giving them your consent. You're right. And then here's another big one that most people don't actually understand, and that is stop using their money. I don't know if anyone's looked at a US $1 bill recently, but flip it over. What's on there? There's a pyramid with an all-seeing eye on it. It's run by the same people. It's the
It's
Rothschilds.
true.
They're actually
Good
satanic
point.
pedivores. But people don't understand the reason it's called currency is because it's like an energetic current. And if you control the currency, the energetic current, you can control much of this world. The Rothschilds even said, whoever controls the money controls the world. And it's true. So if people stop using their money, and that's US dollars, euros, Mexican pesos, British pounds, whatever it is, Japanese yen, which is going to go to zero any time now anyway. Actually,
Right.
most of them are anyway. So you might as well get used to it and start using decent, real, sound money. And that'd be things like gold, silver, and then even cryptocurrencies. Although I wouldn't advise Bitcoin. It's been basically hijacked, but I would advise Monero, which is the top privacy cryptocurrency out there and is made for stuff like this. So if people stopped going and giving their consent, if they stopped giving them all their money, and if they stopped using their money, very quickly, most of this stuff would go away, and we'd actually have freedom and peace and prosperity on Earth,
Mhm.
unlike anything that we've ever known in modern history.
Yeah. I think it's all up in the air. They certainly are powerful, and they certainly have access to the power centers, all the money, all the wealth, the coordination. But to your point, it's a lot harder than they think and we think, I think, for them to control 8 billion people on this planet, right? Like we still care about our communities and humanity, and there is so much we can do. And I agree, giving consent, this is why I've decided that I will likely never ever vote in a national election ever again. I'm boycotting 2026. I'm boycotting 2028. And I will be politically active. That does not mean that I'm advocating apathy, but I'm going to advocate on an organizational level from the bottom up in my local community with people like you, Jeff Berwick, by holding summits for truth and going to Anarchapulco, which I want to do next year. I mean, that's super fun. I mean, seriously, why not go to someplace sunny and beautiful to talk about freedom? And so I certainly think I'm going to try to join you guys next year for that. But, all of these things, one day at a time. I think the first step is just knowing that it is fraud and not giving your consent. And I think that's a great place for a lot of people to start, regardless of where you are in terms of awakening, right? Everyone's in different phases of this. And I really appreciate you, Jeff, and your story and your perspective, because I mean, it makes more sense to me than all of the other things that I see out there, right? All of the narratives and the storylines just don't make sense. But a lot of the things that you talk about finally makes a lot of sense to me. So I think it's a good start.
I appreciate it, and it's been a pleasure to watch you as well. I contacted you. I saw some of your shows recently. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
she's actually got a lot of this stuff. Not a lot of people do still. You
Yeah.
see, like Alex Jones, he's cheering on all this stuff. He wants the U.S. to attack Mexico. He's all happy they're attacking Iran. He's completely sold out,
Yeah.
sold his soul,
Yeah.
basically, is what he's done. And so many of them have. And actually, most of the influence, anyone who's got a very large audience, like we're talking millions of people,
Mhm.
you pretty much know at this point, they're all controlled opposition type people. And that's the way that
Right.
they do it. So all the people like Ben Shapiro gets millions of views. Who's that Mossad tranny woman? I forget her
Don't say
name.
Laura Loomer. Don't
Laura
say Laura.
Loomer. Yeah, Larry Loomer. Yeah, he used to be Larry. I don't know what
I'm not
happened, but
saying a word. I am not saying a word about that. I mean, no, that's where this gets very, very tricky, though, Jeff, is that you have the left wing media and the right wing media, the mainstream media, then the ultra right wing media, and the people who supposedly are against the establishment right wing, you know what I mean? And they're like these layers, and you think that they're on your side, but then they're really not, and it's all confusing. And so it really is. I mean, the level of sophistication out there, and the messaging and the narratives they put out, it's pretty breathtaking, to be honest.
well, yeah, just, for a lot of your audience, just think about what would Jesus do, right? Like,
Yeah,
seriously, what would he do? And what did he do? He was against the taxation of the state. He was against the state, and he was against the money changers, which were the central banks at the time, which were run
yeah,
by Jews.
yeah,
Would he be supporting a attack on Iran
right,
right now? Of course not. Would he be supporting that everyone inject themselves with poison because of
yeah.
fear of a virus? No.
No,
So I think a
no.
lot of the Christian people really need to like sit for a bit and really like
Yeah,
remember like what Jesus would have done in these sort of situations and try to follow him. And it's not voting, it's not paying their taxes, it's not giving them your consent to do evil, heinous acts.
yeah,
It's actually really getting really connected with God again is really what a lot of people need to do. And
right.
that actually is the only thing that's important in this.
It's so true. And to your point, Jesus also called out the two political parties of the day and equalized them. He critiqued the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they were the religious establishment, but essentially the political establishment. And he turned over the table. In fact, he saved his anger. I mean, he was for the most part gentle with everyone, but when it came to the false teachers and the false prophets and the people who were twisting and turning and manipulating the word of God, that he worshiped, that's when he got angry, and he condemned them to hell. I mean, a fiery existence. So, I mean, this was, and that is the truth of the gospel. Any religion can be manipulated. As a Bible believing Christian, Old Testament and New, I can see how my own religion is manipulated by factions and by people who will twist it and turn it. And you can see that it's in so many areas. So, I recommend to my audience, get into your Bibles, a chronological reading. It's been everything for me, Old Testament to New Testament, beginning to end, multiple times in different versions. I started with the Children's Bible. The Tyndale Children's Bible is so understandable and so elegant, and it's a great way to acclimate yourself to Scripture. And then you can, go to the tough stuff, King James and the different versions after. But just so much wisdom there and revelation. And so that would be my takeaway. But Jeff, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate it. I hope to have you on again sometime to continue analyzing what is happening out there, because your voice is important. Anything that people can do, 1 minute left, to support you, follow you, get in touch with you. Now's your moment.
Yeah, feel free to follow me. You go to vigilante.tv. That's where I have my walk and talk videos with my dogs. Dollarvigilante.com. That's our financial newsletter. We've actually been the best at helping people through this apocalypse. We recommended Bitcoin at $3. We've been recommending gold since it was $200. So get our newsletter at dollarvigilante.com. Narcoboco is coming up next year, probably in Puerto Vallarta again. I should also mention there's a new incredible health device I've been using that's so incredible. It's called a Tesla machine. If you want to look into it, it's tzla.club. And that's about it. But I really appreciate you having me on, Shannon.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll have you on again about that as well, the TZLA. You and I discussed that briefly. Really, really interesting. So we'll definitely, now that we're connected, I'll have you on again, and we'll continue to coordinate. Really appreciate you. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thank you, Shannon.
All right. That's Jeff Berwick. He is the Dollar Vigilante. Really, I told you, it's very interesting fellow. And we're going to be keeping an eye on everything he has to say. Big week coming up this week. Tomorrow, we have Sasha Latapova. She'll be live in the Joy Virtual Studio. We have Tiffany Cianci. We have Scott Shara, his new book out about his daughter, Grace. We'll be welcoming him on Wednesday. Big lineup of brilliant guests who get it and understand the times that we live in. And so we have a big week of shows. I want to thank all of you guys for being with us today. Make sure that you go to theshannonjoy.com to get your summit tickets today, theshannonjoy.com. I want to meet you live, and I can't wait to see you on March 21st. Thank you so much for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again right here on The Shannon Joy Show.